Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. Thank you guys for watching this video. If this is the first video you've watched on this channel, definitely go back. There's almost 900 videos on this channel, so plenty to dig around and take a look at all the things that we've covered and all the events that we've lived through and documented on this channel. I'm a watchman bringing you reports on the unfolding world from a biblical perspective, and I know everyone has a different flavor of eschatology, but in this video, I want to really focus in again on this thing that I've been keeping track of on this channel recently, which is the transition of the economic system from maybe paper fiat to digital currencies. And I think there is a connection here to Revelation 13 in the bigger picture of where we're headed in terms of the mark of the beast and the image of the beast. But here's something, again, I want to make very clear. The current system, the fiat-based US dollar, world reserve currency system made by central banks, controlled by the Federal Reserve. This is the part of the beast system. It's right there on your dollar, okay? It's inked on your dollar bill on the paper itself. So you know that this system is part of the beast. We know it. They've shown themselves over and over again what they do, all the history behind it, from Jekyll Island to going off the gold standard to all of it. We know about the history, we know about where we are and why everything is falling apart as a result of it. And as I mentioned in the last video, I think the whole CV thing is part of the distraction or the excuse, the scapegoat to allow an economic transition, an economic crash. And we've seen major things happen in that regard with all the dropping taking place and all the printing of the money to uphold the banks and the liquidity crisis, all that kind of stuff. But I want to cover this news because I know a lot of crypto channels are doing it, but you're going to get a different angle from this channel, hopefully. But this is TechCrunch.com. Former Coinbase exec is now down with OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And it says here, former Coinbase Chief Legal Officer Brian Brooks has been tapped as the Chief Operating Officer and First Deputy Comptroller of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency beginning April 1st, 2020. Remember what happened last year, April 1st, 2019, regarding Bitcoin? This is the Bitcoin 4-hour chart back in April 1st of 2019, moving into the second of the month. We had the mother of all pumps. Well, not the mother of all pumps, but we went from about 4,000 to 4,100 up to 4,700, and we kept going up to 5,000. It started a big rally that lasted for a very long time. There was some pullback here, but yeah, we went all the way up to 14,000 in this rally last year, 2019, right? We went from 4,000 to 14,000. And that April 1st date sparked things off. And I remember that. People were saying, oh, it's the April 1st fake out. But no, the price just kept going up and up and up and up. And it went all the way to 14,000 before it tumbled back down. And it was doing okay until recently. We went back down to 4,000 there, if you see Bitcoin. Again, in the 4-hour chart here. I'm not a chart guy. I'm not an analyst or anything like that. But I like digging around because you can really see the price action, and it really ties in with world events, and you can see how these types of things are recorded. The emotional state of people are recorded in these markets. It's very fascinating, as this is March 11th going into last Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th, when everything went down like crazy. That was the day, right going into the day where Bitcoin bottomed out. I think it wicked under 4,000, which was the price, which is crazy because we were sitting up here in the 9,000s just a few days before. So if you haven't been looking at Bitcoin and if you haven't been looking at the markets, this type of thing, you might think, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But having been looking at Bitcoin since about 2016, it's kind of like, yeah, it goes up, goes down, you kind of get jaded because it's such a crazy market. But what's even crazier is looking at the traditional markets and seeing how they're behaving kind of like the crypto charts, where, you kind of have a steady uptrend. You have some pullbacks this is the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index, but you have just recently in the last few days, and this again is a 4-hour chart. So it'll show you just the last few days here. And these supposedly are supposed to have gaps because these markets aren't open all the time. There's weekends. It's only open during market open hours. But yeah, we saw the same drop happen, and we're seeing it bounce around here. So what's going on? What's taking place here? I think this is a pretty big tell that something is about to change, and I think maybe cryptocurrencies, maybe Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum have something to do with this transition. And it's no surprise, really, but it's very interesting that Coinbase's top lawyer heads to comptroller of the currency office. This little group in the government, the OCC, they're the ones that kind of like police the bank, sort of. I think that's how I understand it. They make sure that the banks are doing what they're supposed to do, and they, help them provide laws and regulations so that they're compliant. It's kind of like a bank auditing thing. So it's interesting. This is like bullish news for people that are pro-crypto. But I wanted to show you this article from Forbes. This was actually written by Brian Brooks back in January of this year, January 7th, 2020. And the article is titled 3 Cryptocurrency Regulation Themes for 2020 and the Flawed Premises Behind Them. He's actually pretty pro-cryptocurrency. It's very fascinating. I have some highlights here. In the story, cryptocurrencies are a threat to monetary policy. It says here that the idea that crypto might complicate the ability of central banks to control the money supply got wide circulation after the announcement of Facebook's Libra project, but it is not unique to Libra. When President Trump tweeted about cryptocurrencies last July, he explicitly named Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which he believes to be, quote, highly volatile and based on thin air. You guys remember that Trump tweet? The US dollar, he stated, is, quote, the only real currency in the USA. Even stablecoins like Libra, which are in fact backed by fiat currencies issued by central banks, drew ample criticism in 2019 because the weighting of fiat in the underlying currency basket could advantage or disadvantage individual currencies in ways national central banks cannot control. In 2020, look for stablecoin legislation designed to respond to these kinds of criticisms. I think what's going to happen here is that Trump may, through, guys like this being brought into the fold, he might be creating his own digital dollar. Go on here with this article, but the assumption behind this type of legislation deserve further investigation. One premise seems to be that politically appointed central bankers are the most appropriate stewards of the money supply. But are they? The recent death of former Fed Chair Paul Volcker reminds us of a time when interest rates had to be raised to 20% to combat the inflation that had taken hold as a result of easy money policies in the mid-1970s. Before my time, but 20%, that's crazy, to convince the public to use the money that they're issuing here. But right now, as we know yesterday, they brought that percentage to 0. So why is anybody still using it? It's all a charade. Further down in the article, again, this is the guy that just got brought into the OCC, comptroller of currency in the United States, by Mnuchin and the whole Trump team there. He says, for the matter, from a monetary policy perspective, how are cryptocurrencies any different from other privately created units of exchange that are bought, sold, traded, or transferred? In 2018, American Express issued more than $8.4 billion in membership rewards points, about the same amount of circulating supply as the third largest cryptocurrency, which are a form of privately created money generated each time an Amex card holder makes a qualifying transaction. Like cryptocurrencies, these points fluctuate in value depending on how and when they are used. So he's making the point here that the kind of rewards membership stuff people use in Visa and MasterCard and all these kinds of stuff, it's sort of the same idea, but it's a lot less transparent. They issue everything, and the whole idea of crypto is you can do that type of program with smart contracts and with different platforms, various platforms that already have this kind of thing. And you can basically use your cryptocurrency as money in the same way that you use money now. And those types of on-ramps and off-ramps are available or are going to become more available. I think right now there's like crypto.com, and I think that's the biggest one that's really doing the whole card thing, and you can become members and you got to stake some coins and you get rewards, and you can have Spotify, and there's all kinds of quirks that are available, and that's sort of the direction of where everything is headed here. And it'll become more and more apparent as you see what this guy that was just brought in to be a law guy to police the currency and the banks and everything in the United States. He says cryptocurrencies pose unique risks for illicit activity. Money laundering, terrorism financing, and human trafficking are fundamental threats to the rule of law and our way of life, but the primary vector for such activities is the current banking system, not crypto. Wow. Somebody that just got brought into government believes that all of this stuff, the terrorism, the money laundering, human trafficking, that's all primarily with the current banking system. That means fiat dollars, not crypto. Now remember, there was a couple videos ago that I showed Steve Mnuchin basically holding up giant sheets of dollars and him saying on the news that, he's the dollar's not laundered, and the host, I can't remember his name, I don't watch these financial shows, but the host there, making a face of totally surprised because that's just ridiculous. Everybody knows the dollar is the most laundered currency in the world. In its 2018 National Money Laundering Risk Assessment, the U.S. Treasury Department cataloged a litany of multi-million-dollar money laundering fines levied against banks, both large and small, ranging from a $425 million fine against Deutsche Bank and a $70 million fine against Citigroup. Deutsche Bank and Citigroup, these are huge, huge banks. Actually, Deutsche Bank has been dropping for a long time. I think their shares are like under $5 or something now. Two smaller fines against community banks like Merchants Bank of California and Lone Star National Bank of Texas. Yet, no one seriously believes that the main purpose of the banking system is to launder money or finance other criminal conduct. We all understand that criminals will take advantage of nearly any system to achieve their aims, and that combating crimes requires sound risk management and sophisticated management systems, not elimination of a valuable service that is primarily used for lawful purposes. In the case of crypto, the most recent studies, separately conducted by blockchain analytics firm Chain Analysis and Elliptic, which Chain Analysis already has kind of its shadowy side to it because they're working with the government to analyze a lot of the blockchains and the transactions and trying to tie it to real-world events. And that's kind of the gap that exists with cryptocurrencies, that you can't really know exactly what's taking place in the real world that caused or is behind a transaction. Although you can see the transaction and the wallets that they're moving to. So there's that pseudo-anonymous nature of something like Bitcoin. Okay, so they showed that fewer than 1% of exchange-based Bitcoin transactions involve illegal activity. Less than 1%. They can see it all, right? And that's why they busted that pedo ring with Bitcoin, because they can see who was doing that transaction and all the transactions, and they can tie it to real-world events. And he goes into privacy tokens and how they don't actually cause risk because, there's a certain level of security that needs to be involved. And so really interesting things coming from the mind of Brian Brooks, who was just brought in to basically police the currency. And why would they bring in a Bitcoin guy, a cryptocurrency guy, to police the currency? Could it be because they're getting ready to digitize the dollar into the new USA dollar, the digital dollar money, Fedcoin, whatever you want to call it? But as usual, there's a darker side to this because, as always, there are markers of concern with anything given this new world of order. But here we go. CNET.com. This is from March. I guess we're in March, early March. And this story was around, but Clearview AI facial recognition customers reportedly include DOJ, FBI, ICE, Macy's, and in this article of using Clearview AI for facial recognition, the company of Coinbase is mentioned. So Coinbase it's one of, I think it is the biggest Bitcoin on-ramp, fiat on-ramp, at least in America. It's the most popular one, and their activity over the years has been very interesting, but Coinbase is an application that I've had for a very long time, and I've tried to take all of my personal crypto off of it now. At this point, I really don't have any on there anymore, but it is a place where you can get started in investing in something like Bitcoin or a whole bunch of other coins now, and that's where a lot of the drama or interesting things came, and what coins get placed on the exchange, what don't. But it's very interesting. I've been looking at Coinbase. I've had Coinbase since Ethereum was like $20 and Litecoin was like $2 or something. And watched those assets go from $2 in the case of Litecoin all the way to $380 within a span of like a year and a half, and then drop all the way down to 30, and then, the whole deal, up and down, up and down. And also watched Ethereum go from $20 all the way to, $1,400 or something, $1,400 in that same amount of time, and then crash back down to, it got pretty low, it got $70, $80, I think, at the worst point, and now we're pretty close to the lows again with in the hundreds. But yeah, anyway, Coinbase, they have not implemented any kind of facial recognition technology yet, but it looks like they're dabbling along with all these government institutions. And so, of course, the guy that gets picked out of the crypto world into government is a guy that's been rubbing shoulders with, companies that have partnered with the DOJ, FBI, all these organizations already. So it seems like it's not really anybody getting plucked out of a totally different world. It's more like, hey, who can we get that's within our ranks that seems to kind of know what's going on with the whole crypto deal and help us out. And again, here's another TechCrunch article. Clearview said its facial recognition app was only for law enforcement as it courted private companies. There's a lot of talk here because people are concerned, like, hey, what's going on with this Clearview? And again, same article, Coinbase is named. And the other thing I want to mention here is talking about that bubble when Bitcoin, went up to 20,000, Ethereum went up to like 1,400, Litecoin was 380, all that stuff, all that crazy pumping that took place. There was news a few months ago. BitcoinExchangeGuide.com is this particular outlet, how President Donald Trump's administration deflated Bitcoin's 2017 bull run. The Trump administrator deliberately popped the $20,000 Bitcoin bubble of 2017 by allowing the launch of Bitcoin features on CME and CBOE. It is according to Christopher Giancarlo, the former Commodity and Futures Trading Commission chairman, the Treasury Secretary and National Economic Council director at the time, believed that the launch of the Bitcoin features would pop the Bitcoin bubble. It worked, according to Giancarlo. So the theory is that Trump was behind the popping of Bitcoin's bubble. And why is that? Well, maybe because there wasn't a proper on-ramp and off-ramp that he liked to the US dollar. And this is where, there's a stable coin out there, the main one. It's called Tether. We can take a look at it here, the Tether price. It's supposed to be 1-to-1 with the dollar. Obviously, you can see it's a little bit different right now just because it looks like everybody is flooding back and forth into Tether and into other digital assets. And that's what you can do with Tether because it's a cryptocurrency technically, even though it's tied 1-to-1 to the dollar. You can be in the markets and you can sort of hedge. You can, let's say you buy some Bitcoin at $5,000. Let's say it goes up to $10,000. Well, you can, instead of going into actual US dollars as, the fiat US dollars, you can just go into Tether and hold digital $1 bills basically. And then if the price goes back down, you can buy up more Bitcoin with your gains there. So it's a way that people use it for trading, but there's a lot of shadiness and some things that don't bode well with the people behind Tether. And so if there is some kind of US official dollar that comes in, or maybe they just, I don't know, there's a bunch out there. This is the part where it gets more difficult because there's a bunch of, crypto stable coins that are tied to the dollar. Tether is definitely the biggest one, but Coinbase launched the USDC, or the USD coin, which is a stable coin pegged to the US dollar 1-to-1. It's the brainchild of Center, which is managed by Coinbase and Circle. And Jack Dorsey has Square, doing, his whole thing with money and finance and trying to create that ecosystem of exchange. And he's a big Bitcoin fan as well, which is interesting. But again, there are others, True USD, and let's see, well, MakerDAO on this list, but MakerDAO just had a huge crash and a little bit of a problem with the liquidation. So there's more here. The point being that it's possible that one of these gets picked. Maybe USD coin becomes the official US digital dollar, or maybe Trump will make his own US digital dollar. But here's the thing, if that happens, let's say USDC is the one that they pick. Well, this is built on Ethereum. Okay, this is built on the Ethereum blockchain. And that would mean assets like Ethereum might go bananas in terms of price. So again, as a watchman, I'm just saying now might be a good time to scoop up a little bit at a time in terms of cryptocurrencies. And if you're new, you can go and start at Coinbase. You don't have to keep your coins there, but you can, start purchasing coins and learning about cryptocurrencies. And there's ways you can do that. I'll have a link down in the description section and a pinned comment where you can check out Coinbase. And it gives me a little kickback to support the channel. There is no facial recognition stuff necessary, I don't think anyway. Well, at least when I signed up with Coinbase, I didn't need to do any facial recognition stuff. Although there might be some KYC stuff. But all that, again, it's really interesting because it's up to you whether you want to be compliant with the government and the laws, or you want to be totally rogue and against the government, and you can do crypto that way as well. And I think there's pros and cons to both ways. That's up to you. You have that choice right now, and that's what I think we need to continue to do in terms of educating the public. We still have a choice here, and that choice, I don't think that choice is going to be choked out by a new US digital dollar. I think what's going to happen maybe is that it's only going to legitimize that space, and how Trump's tweet about Bitcoin may change. He might say, yeah, I changed my mind. Or maybe he says Ethereum is the is the main cryptocurrency. It has value. But it's just one of those issues where things are changing very quickly, and it's fascinating to watch. Because another thing to this, and one more thing before I wrap it up here, there is a bill. The Earn It bill is a government's plan to scan every message online. Basically, this bill is one that wants to break all encryption. Imagine an internet, and this is EEF.org, which is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Imagine an internet where the law required every message sent to be read by government-approved scanning software. Companies that handle such messages wouldn't be allowed to securely encrypt them, or they'd lose legal protection that allow them to operate. That's what the Senate Judiciary Committee has proposed and hopes to pass into law. The so-called Earn It bill, sponsored by Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal, will strip Section 230 protections away from any website that doesn't follow a list of best practices, meaning those sites can be sued into bankruptcy. The best practices list will be created by a government commission headed by Attorney General Barr, who has made it very clear he would like to ban encryption and guarantee law enforcement legal access to any digital message. Holy moly. The Earn It bill had its first hearing today, and its supporters' strategy is clear. Because they didn't put the word encryption in the bill, they're going to insist it doesn't affect encryption. This bill says nothing about encryption, co-sponsor Senator Blumenthal said at today's hearing. Have you found a word in this bill about encryption? He asked one witness. It is true that the bill's authors avoided using the word, but they did propose legislation that enables an all-out assault on encryption. It would create a 19-person commission that's completely controlled by the Attorney General and law enforcement agencies. And at the hearing, a vice president at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children made it clear what he wants the best practices to be. NCMEC believes online services should be made to screen their messages for material that NCMEC considers abusive, use screening technology approved by NCMEC and law enforcement, report what they find to the message, and be held legally responsible for the content of messages sent by others. You can't have an internet where messages are screened en masse and also have end-to-end encryption any more than you can create backdoors that can only be used by the good guys. These two are mutually exclusive. Concepts like client-side scanning aren't a clever route around this. Such scanning is just another way to break end-to-end encryption. That is absolutely right. Either the message remains private to everyone but its recipients, or it's available to others. And he goes on here and wraps up this whole issue with the problem with the Earn It bill. But again, interesting. Why would they want to bring in a bill that basically can crack encryption, or allowed to not have encryption, or bankrupt companies that do have encryption, and at the same time bring in a guy who basically is like is pro a technology like blockchain and Bitcoin that is very much based on encryption. Now, there's more to this whole apparatus switching system change because obviously we know about Trump's ties to Israel and the Zionist groups, and I'm not going to get into all of the details with that, but I have documented on this channel how a company like Simplex is one of the biggest on-off ramps for fiat around, and a lot of companies that offer crypto services or crypto wallets or something like that, when they integrate some kind of fiat on-ramp, it's always through Simplex, and Simplex is a company that was based in Israel. So there's that connection there. It seems like, hey, maybe they're already starting to build this out. And my concern, just personally speaking here, again, I know everyone has different opinions and lands differently on this issue, but me personally, whatever Trump implements here, there is going to be an element of good because it's replacing the corrupt old dying system. But at the same time, if it is heavily created and held up and in connection to Israel, which again, I have a whole series on a deal that was made between Israel and New York to share all the information regarding this emerging technology of financial technology. The groundworks are there. Now they needed the mass panic, the chaos to take place to slip in those changes, to make all those changes. And what a good way to do it, but have everybody in their homes and be freaking out about all this stuff and really slow down economic activity to pretty much a halt all around the world. Except, think about it, a lot of commerce and money movement ending except online. Everything is still online, and things are still getting done online. And another kind of twist to this, an angle to this, is GESARA, which is the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. And I know this is trying to be implemented in other places. They've tried to make NESARA the national one, and now they have the GESARA, the global one. But basically, they're trying to bring everything back to a gold standard. And some people have said, it's good, we want to be back to the gold standard. But if you're a Trump guy, maybe you implement this. And maybe Trump does this as part of the whole process of digitizing everything. A quick shout out to Eileen, Trey, Will, Mike, Elizabeth, Tristan, and Benjamin. Wow, 12 new patrons this month. Thank you guys so much. You guys are really making it happen in Patreon there. I appreciate all the support. I also want to thank Gene and Lee, Alex, and Matthew coming in with big time support on PayPal. Just a direct PayPal support. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who picked up a USB drive. I know I said I'd mail it out right after the recording there last video, but things changed around here. Things got really locked down, and I really couldn't get to a post office on Saturday. And so I will be going right after I hit the publish button on this one. So you will definitely get it this week, or maybe hopefully, sometime in the next week or so. I apologize for the delay on that, but again, I really do appreciate your support. And there's some extra little things in the envelope when it shows up. And so if anybody wants to pick up a USB, it's facelikethesun.net/USB. To check out the Patreon, it's patreon.com/facelikethesun. Stay watchful, stay vigilant, and share the gospel. Have an awesome day. God bless.